So, good evening, all of you. We were covering the topic of health last time, and we completed the infectious diseases, the infectious or communicable diseases. We have to now start with the non-communicable diseases. So, as far as COVID is concerned, thank you. You people have read too many things, and that also adds to too much confusion also. So there was this one point which was that, is COVID a zoonotic disease? So that was one troubling point for a few of you. I want to clarify this again. I know you've got your replies also, your batch coordinators have done that part, but still. For COVID, there is one thing which I have to tell you. Please remember, even in future, whenever you are getting confused with anything, as far as COVID infection is concerned, this is a new disease. And because everything related to this disease is taking place at a very fast pace, we do not have the liberty of going into a lot of research, right? Because you have to immediately develop things. That's how the world is working. Okay, there's a disease. So develop diagnostic tools, develop cheaper diagnostic tools, develop tests, and then that has to be sent to all parts of the world. Then you get the data. Then you develop different treatment modalities, what could be done. So different permutations have been tried. Then they're now going into the aspect of the vaccine. So everything has been done. But along with this, there is no substantial time frame with us on which we could have researched, on which we could have actually understood a lot of aspects. So different things have been proposed. Most of them are in the form of theories, we can call them right now. They have not entered our textbooks, right? There's a textbook of general medicine which people all over the world, they would study when they are learning about different diseases. So COVID has not reached there. So anything which we know about COVID as of today is variable. Different places are showing different results. Different concepts have been proposed by different scientists. We do not have anything which is standard as of now. So you have to take this idea with that pinch of salt that yes, it is fluid, right? So zoonotic disease was an explanation of COVID on the WHO website, right? I'm very well aware of that. But yeah, last time also I said that it's not a zoonotic disease. Today also I'm going to reinstate that. Why? Because this was one theory that it is a zoonotic disease, right? But we have not seen any spread. Zoonotic would mean that there is a spread which is happening from an animal to a human being. We have had some animals, some dogs, some cats, even the tiger in one of the countries which has tested positive for this coronavirus, okay, this COVID-19 virus. But we have no information. Maybe we have not been able to gather that data, or for any reason we don't have that information that there is a spread from at animal to man. In animals it has been seen, that is a certain part of the information, but that spread is not there. So we are not really counting it as a zoonotic disease. That's the whole idea. Okay. Now if we go further into minuteness of this, so you can say something like, you know, that okay, what if there is the saliva of this animal which has come in, and this saliva has virus, and I come in contact with that saliva, will I get COVID? Yes, that is definitely a possibility. There could be channels in which you can twist all of these things, but you don't have to go into this aspect. Okay, please remember, you're preparing for the UPSC exam. This is not a pathology session, and you don't have to go into these aspects because you will not be asked these questions on which certainty is not there. Not just you, if somebody is appearing in a second year MBBS exam also for pathology, they will also not be asked this question because there is still a lot of vagueness around COVID. Okay, so please accept that, right? That is the first thing I want to say. After this, what I want to say is that today also, There are going to be a lot of topics. Now first I'm going to teach you non-communicable diseases. After this I'm going to teach you immunity and then vaccination, right? And you will have a lot of questions. You will have, sometimes we just want to tell. The teacher has not told this, but I read it somewhere, so I must ask, I must point this out. कि ये कैसे नहीं बताया? Why is this not there? What happens to this? So you'll have that very severe tendency to do that. But what I'm requesting you here is that let me complete each topic one by one. At my end, I'm going to try and cover everything which is necessary for you from the perspective of the exam, right? Once I've completed with vaccination, then you ask the question, right? If I just start talking about immunity and there you start asking questions, it is going to become very difficult for you to concentrate on the rest of the class. And this class, in terms of concepts, it is very, very important, and it can be confusing also. If I talk about antigens and antibodies, and if you are busy thinking about something else, or maybe, putting your effort into trying to get some queries driven, so you will get confused, okay? Wait for a topic to finish, because concepts are interrelated here, right? A lot of concepts are interrelated. You will understand once you go through, once you listen through the whole thing, right? And after that, whatever is not clear, I am here. I'm going to address that. Okay, and if I don't address, at least I will tell you that how you can get through it, right? And we have our team. We have Vikram and Divyansh also. They are also going to be helping you, right? So let's start with the class and see how things go. Okay, so this is the first question which I have for you, a UPSC question. I think this should be 2019 question, if I remember correctly. So solve this. This is from what we covered in the last class. See how much you can recollect. Okay, so Ashwini is saying B, Shivani also says B, Bhupesh says B, Abhishek says B. Okay, everybody's saying B. Ashirwad, oh, that's actually a very nice name. Ramya, chalo. B. Hoping the answer should be B. Now the question says which of the following statements is not correct, right? Which of the following statements is not correct? So we have to identify the incorrect statement. First one, hepatitis B virus is transmitted much like HIV. Okay, so HIV we will study a little bit more when we do immunity after that. So hepatitis B, that's being transmitted through your body fluids. HIV also, you might be aware, spreads that way. Then hepatitis B, unlike hepatitis C, does not have a vaccine. This is incorrect. This question has a lot of story, I call these as story questions. So they have a lot of stories, they have facts which you might not have heard about, but answer would be the easiest one. The answer would be something which you know. And you know that hepatitis C does not have a vaccine against it. All other types of hepatitis, they have vaccines other than hepatitis C. So this one is saying hepatitis B doesn't have a vaccine. So this is definitely incorrect, and even if I don't want to read this story, I have the answer. Let me still cover this up. Globally, the number of people infected by hepatitis B and C viruses are several times more than those infected by HIV. Yes. So I told you this thing that hepatitis is one of the most infectious viral diseases in which a lot of people are suffering. And I also want to point this out to you that this very fact was asked earlier also in some form by UPSC, that they said that hepatitis is more infectious than HIV. A statement like that was there, but the same idea was asked. So when you are practicing your previous year's questions, it becomes very important that you focus on all the options. so that if there's any new information, it's not that, okay, this is the answer, this is all you need to know. You need to know other things also. You need to have an idea about the other aspects also, because they can be repeated or something based on them could be asked by you, asked by UPSC again. Okay. Last one. Most of those infected with hepatitis B and C viruses do not show the symptoms of for many years. This is true for hepatitis. This is also true for HIV. HIV, somebody might get infected but have no symptom of the disease for 10 years or 20 years. That's a very common possibility with these diseases. So this is correct. Now, if you are not aware of any of these statements, please note them down. And I'm actually very glad that my audience poll has 100% result. So all of you remembered this thing and have given the answer B. So yes, you can all pat your backs. Very good. Coming to the next topic, non-communicable disease. So I'm going to be discussing this in terms of certain examples. So like we studied that there are different types of non-communicable diseases or infectious diseases. The ones we have on the board, these are not the types. Okay, these you can take them as the different examples. Okay, you can take this as the different examples of non-communicable diseases. What was non-communicable diseases? If you remember, we studied a concept of pathogen. Right? You have written on this already. Pathogen is a disease-causing organism. So any disease which is caused without the pathogen, right? We consider two things: lifestyle and environmental factors. Okay, lifestyle and environmental factors. Any diseases which are caused by these, there is no organism involved. These would be non-communicable or non-infectious diseases. Okay, and the burden of these diseases and the fact that they are leading to death, right? That is increasing, and there is a lot of concern, growing concern around this whole subject of non-communicable diseases. There are different global programs. In India also we have a number of programs for different non-communicable diseases. I want to take your attention in particular to the current affairs of the month of December. In the month of December, this topic, non-communicable diseases, is covered, and there they have given you a list of national programs. Okay, there are 4-5 programs which the government is running for different non-communicable diseases. Just today only, after the class, you go to that portion in the December current affairs, and you will be able to correlate, okay, that additional information. Let's talk about these diseases here. So these are a few types of non-communicable diseases. This is not an exhaustive list. There can be many more, okay, but this is just the most common types of non-communicable diseases. So I'm hoping you are writing all of this down. Please write down cardiovascular diseases. Okay. The word cardio or cardiac means heart, vascular means vessels. So the heart and blood vessels, any diseases associated with this, starting from the simplest disease, hypertension or high blood pressure, okay, to something like cardiac arrest or heart attack, which you call, they would be your cardiovascular diseases. Then you have chronic respiratory diseases, so something like asthma or asthma, as Americans would call it, right, is the most common example. Then we have deficiency diseases. We have studied a few deficiency diseases. These can be diseases of vitamins, minerals, even of hormones. We have to still study hormones, right? But here you can just mention this. in deficiency diseases. When something is deficient, some nutrient or some hormone, when it is deficient in the body, it can manifest as a disease. Like you saw, night blindness or rickets or beriberi. I hope you remember all of that. Then mental diseases, from the most simplest condition of clinical depression to diseases like bipolar disease. Okay, all of these could be mental disorders. Leading to more advanced types also like Alzheimer's disease. If you've seen that movie Black, in that Amitabh Bachchan has this disease, Alzheimer's disease. Then environmental diseases would be also taught to you when you study your portion of environment, right? So in that, pollution becomes one factor for causing different types of diseases. I'll give you two examples here. One is Minamata disease. This is a disease caused by presence of mercury in water. So mercury, that is as a pollutant in water, and that mercury is consumed by fish, and then you eat that fish, you can get this disease, Minamata disease, because of the environment. Then there is this disease, fluorosis. Fluorosis would be because of excess of fluorine, again in water. Okay, so there is a definite percentage of fluorine which is acceptable in groundwater. If you remember, when we studied fluorine, we said that fluorine was important to prevent decay of tooth. And we had groundwater or drinking water as the main source of fluorine or fluorides in our body. But if that is in excess, that can actually damage your teeth. And if it's even more than a certain level, so in very severe cases, it can damage your bones also. That disease would be fluorosis. Okay? So please note all of this down. Then let's talk about cancer. So all the cells in your body, they have a definite lifespan. So there is a lifespan for which they will grow, they will divide, and then ultimately they're supposed to stop dividing, do their role, and then they will die. So the cycle for each of the cells is fixed. Cancer is a condition where the cells cannot stop dividing. And if the cells cannot stop dividing, that means their number will keep on increasing. And if that number is increasing, there is going to be an abnormal tissue growth. Okay, an abnormal growth of tissue. So suppose this is an organ, fine, and here at this portion, the cells start growing in an uncontrolled manner. So they are disturbing the original structure and they are growing as an extra growth, an extra tissue, an abnormal tissue. This is what cancer basically is. Okay, this is what basically cancer is. Now, such a growth can just be present in the one organ and would not, there can be a condition where it is doing nothing to these surrounding organs. It's not damaging any other part of the body. It is just that this one organ which has this growth, that has limited cancer. This kind of a cancer is called benign cancer or benign tumor. You've heard the word tumor commonly, right? So tumor would just be this part, right? It is limited to one organ, it is growing as an abnormality in one part of the body, but it is not affecting any other part. Okay. So what can I do if I want to treat this? Right? I can simply do a surgical process. I can remove this part, which is the most common line of treatment, and the person will be okay. This is one condition. There is another condition where we say that the cancer has spread. Again, I take two organs. Okay, please use your imagination. These are two organs. But now my cancer, which is, or the abnormal cells which are dividing, they have also started impacting or impinging on the surrounding organs. So now my cancer is not benign because it has gone and it has affected other organs. It can be an effect due to direct growth over other organs, or the second condition can be that from blood. Blood is there going to all the different organs of the body. So from there, what is happening is that blood will take these dividing cells, these extra uh, stimulated dividing cells from one part of the uh, body where it is actually infected to another part. So that part also will now have abnormally dividing cells. So in that sense, it can spread. So a spreading cancer, which is not limited to its localized position, that is called malignant cancer. Right? So two types of cancer, benign, which is localized, and the one which spreads is malignant. Here, even if I try to like cut it or remove it from here, that's not a good enough solution because multiple organs could be involved. So I have to bring in other lines of treatment also here. Okay. Let's just write 2-3 lines. Then I will talk to you further about the treatment and the causes. If, okay, write down cancer, uncontrollable cell division, uncontrollable cell division that leads to abnormal tissue growth. Uncontrollable cell division that leads to abnormal tissue growth is cancer. Okay. Then write down benign tumor. Benign tumor. It is a type of cancer. It is a type of cancer in which the abnormal tissue growth is limited. The abnormal tissue growth is limited to a particular part of the body, and does not spread. Then next you can write down malignant cancer. Malignant cancer. When dividing cancer cells spread to different parts of the body, spread to different parts of the body and destroy the surrounding healthy tissue. And destroy the surrounding healthy tissue. That would be your malignant cancer. Okay. Now you might have heard about the different stages of cancer. Okay. I'm trying to really simplify this whole idea for you, right? So you might have heard that, okay, there's a stage 1 cancer, stage 2 cancer. Now what is the understanding of these different stages? These stages would be based on a combination of things. One would be that how much part of the body is involved. Okay, how much part of the body is having those extra dividing, uncontrolled cell division. That would be one criteria. Then the second criteria would be, is it spreading? Okay, so if suppose there's one part of the body which is infected, but it is localized to that part, it's not spreading. Or the second condition would be it is spreading. So you might have heard people say that, okay, all the organs on the left side, they have been infected. So cancer has spread. How far it has spread? Fine. Or how much is it spreading? And the last one is criteria is going to be the rate. What is the rate? What is the time frame in which it is spreading? How fast is it spreading? How aggressive are these dividing cells? So based on all this, we identify that what is the stage of the cancer, and hence there would be treatment options. There are 3 lines of treatments in cancer. One I have already told you, which is very effective in case of your benign tumors, that is surgical. Surgical treatment, right? So you remove that part. Wherever there is cancer, we remove that part. Okay. Then the next line is chemotherapy. What is this chemotherapy? You've heard about it. Chemotherapy simply means medicines, chemicals, giving chemical treatment in order to control the cell division of these cells, of these cancer cells. Okay, chemotherapy, the use of chemicals, medicines or drugs, whatever you want to call them. And then you have radiotherapy. Radiation therapy, use of different kinds of radiation, again to make sure that the cells stop dividing. Right? So these are the different lines of treatment depending on the severity of or the kind of cancer or the location in which cancer is there. Like suppose cancer is there in your blood. Now that would not be possible to surgically remove. Right? Blood cells, if they are cancerous, you cannot remove them surgically. So you'll have to give an alternative option. Right? Let me just very briefly give you an idea about what would be the causes of cancer. Now cancer also still in research. We don't have an exact line of treatment. We don't have an exact idea about what is causing cancer. But through many, many years of research, we have been able to identify some factors which have been associated with cancer. So lifestyle and diet are predominantly seen as factors. So you might also be reading a lot about this, that okay, if you eat this you will not have cancer, if you don't eat this you'll have cancer, if you use plastic in the microwave that's going to be cancerous. A lot of such ideas are there. So there is some correlation with diet and lifestyle. In lifestyle we also have things like different kinds of addictions which have been known to be very closely associated with cancer. Like smoking is injurious to health, it causes cancer, right? You read this everywhere, you see this everywhere, you go and watch a movie, so first you have to meet Mukesh. You know, I hope you know Mukesh, the brand ambassador of lung cancer. So those things have been known to be associated with damage of that particular organ and cancer of that particular organ. Like if you are consuming pan, okay, or any such these things, betel nut is there, areca nut leaf is there, so they could be associated with oral cancer, cancer of your mouth or cancer of the tongue, right? And or smoking, cancer of the lungs. So like these, they could be associated. Then you have your radiations. Okay, in radiations, you can have natural radiations like UV rays. UV, ultraviolet radiations are known to have been causing skin cancer. That is why there is concern on loss of ozone layer, which protects us against UV radiations. If you've not read about this, if you have no idea, you will read about this in detail in your environmental section. Or then you can have atomic radiations, nuclear radiations. The nuclear waste, they give out radiations. Like we had an atomic attack in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So after that, there was a lot of radiation which came along with these explosions, and a lot of people developed cancer. It also damaged their genetic material. So even now, subsequent generations are more prone to getting these kind of diseases. So we come to this other factor. There can be some genes. Okay, there can be genes involved. Genetic influence could be there, right? And then there is a very wonderful word in medical science, which they say idiopathic. Idiopathic, I hope you're writing all of this down. I'm not dictating anything here. Idiopathic means cause unknown. Okay, idiopathic means cause unknown. Right? So, a lot of what we don't understand, a lot of which we cannot point out, we can say this is an idiopathic cause or idiopathic occurrence of a disease is there, which means cause unknown. We cannot say this for definite reasons. Not everybody who will be eating pan will be having oral cancer. So there's not a definite correlation, right? But these have been closely linked to causing cancer in a lot of ways. And until we find something definite, we know that there is a mixture of all these reasons which cause cancer. Basically, what you just need to know is that this is division of the cells which is uncontrolled in nature, right? And because no pathogen is involved, we say this is a non-communicable disease. All right. So with this, we've come to the end of our diseases. Communicable, non-communicable, both the diseases is there. And Bhupesh is saying Mukesh is alive. Okay. So Mukesh is alive, obviously. If you watch Kapil Sharma's show, so he's supposed to be Sapna's alleged boyfriend. She uses some term. I can't remember, some very peculiar term she uses for this. कि वो मेरा क्या है, पता नहीं क्या है. Cancer is not a definite reason to kill people. A lot of people get recovered with cancer. Chhawa, I got that. So I don't know which language this word is, but yeah. So Mukesh is definitely a character, and a lot of people do get cured from cancer also. So you don't have to necessarily die from it, right? I'll be taking in your questions, but along with this, there is this one question which UPSC asked, right? So I want you to see how much you can connect in this question. Give me the answers to this. And I'll give the answer to your question. Okay. So Abhinav says, does any part of the body where cancer cannot grow at all, or can it grow anywhere? So Abhinav, it is just an abnormal cell growth. Okay, so it can be anywhere. And we have evidences of cancer being there in almost all part of the body. If there are some specific type of cells which cannot grow abnormally, if there is any specificity, I am not aware. To the best of my knowledge, all the cells can be cancerous. Okay. Okay. I have heard people saying that they cured blood cancer by changing the whole blood. Now, how does this work? Okay. So, Tanvi, when we say changing the whole blood, it basically means changing the blood cells. Okay, changing the blood cells, like suppose there can be, there are different types of cancers. In one particular type of cancer, what can happen is that one cell can be more in number and the other one can be deficit. Both the conditions would be there, more number of cells or deficient number of cells. Because of any reason, the formation of some one particular type of cell is preventing the production of other type of cells. So we can restore those cells. Okay, we can restore the cells. That is how we say that we change the blood. We are not changing everything. We are not changing the fluid component. We are not changing the liquid part or the proteins, right? But we can change those cells. That is possible. Those blood cells are formed in your bone marrow. Bone marrow is a part of the long bones. Okay. And by doing a bone marrow transplant, you have heard about the bone marrow transplant, we can provide those cells, whichever cells are involved in different types of blood cancer. Okay. We are going to, when we come to genetics, we are going to study stem cell therapy. In stem cell therapy, we will talk about how cells are formed and how we can use this therapy to change the cells. Okay, so there it will become more clear to you. We still also have to study what are the different components of blood. So once we cover that, you will be able to correlate. Okay. If cancer could be genetic, it would fit more into congenital diseases, wouldn't it? Okay, so Vikas, it's a good thing you asked this question. See, a lot of your genetic diseases would be non-communicable in nature. So this non-communicable disease or categorizing something as non-communicable, this is not like an airtight compartment. Genetic diseases, we studied them separately as congenital and acquired, but genetic diseases could also be called non-communicable diseases. Okay, so here the categorization is not airtight like we had in infectious diseases, where something which is a bacterial disease cannot be a fungal disease because they are different organisms. But here there is definitely this kind of overlap, and you have very nicely picked up on that. So genetic diseases can be non-communicable also. Genetic diseases can be called congenital also, both the words. The idea is that you must be very clear that what this word means. Okay, you should know. If I'm using the word congenital, it would mean that this is something which is there right from the time of birth. If I'm using the word genetic, that means some genes are involved. If I'm using the word non-communicable, it means that no pathogens are involved. So if you have that clarity in your mind, you will be able to correlate that yes, some overlap would definitely be seen. This is not an airtight classification. Okay? All right. So let's see your answers now. Ajinkya, Gopal, Abhishek says C, Bhupesh says B, Shubham says B. Okay. Let's Smriti, Advait, Suraj, B. अच्छा B भी है, C भी है. Most of you are saying B, but B and C is the struggle. So let's see. So you've not read some of these. I understand that. But again, we have to solve the questions, because whenever we are getting questions, we will not always have the liberty of knowing everything. So this is a match the following questions. Usually there is always a match the following question in the paper. So you make use of the options. I've been saying this time and again, you will not go wrong if you make use of the options. So see, hemophilia, okay, maybe you've not heard about this. Diabetes, rickets, ringworm. Ringworm and rickets, so definitely you have all read. Okay, I think this should not be a confusion to anybody. Ringworm is a fungal disease. We've studied this, Dad Khad Khujli, okay. And rickets is a deficiency disease, deficiency of vitamin D, deficiency of calcium. So ये दोनों options में I do not expect anybody to give me the wrong answer. So D and 4 and C and 1. So I'm glad these are the two options you are getting confused with. Very good. That means all of you have found this to be correct. Then the first two, hemophilia and diabetes. Okay. So we're going to study about both these diseases. Why I have given you this question here is so that you can see some kind of a correlation even when you don't know exactly. अब दो option बचे हैं देखो. We have a genetic disease, we have a hormonal disease. Right? Some of you might think that diabetes is genetically linked because we say that it can be hereditary, right? But hemophilia, right? Hemophilia cannot be a hormonal disease. Diabetes, you also, all of you, if you think about it, would be knowing about the fact that diabetes is because of the deficiency of insulin, right? And when we studied proteins, we did study that insulin is a hormone. So out of these two, we have to assign hormonal disease to one of them. And diabetes is because of a deficiency of a hormone insulin. We studied that as an example of globular protein. Okay, so if you could connect it there, you would have got this. Diabetes is a hormonal disease, right? And hemophilia is a purely genetic disease, right? So you need to draw some connection sometimes because exactly you would not be always knowing everything, right? We have to still study hemophilia also. It's a very important genetic disease. We will study about that. We'll study about diabetes also, so don't worry. Here now my answer is A should be 2 and B should be 3. So as most of you have pointed out, the answer is B. Answer is B. Okay. All right. Now we'll go to immunity. Very, very important topic. A lot of concepts, lot of ideas. Please be extra attentive here. So a lot of small ideas are there in this topic, right? Please listen carefully. There'll be a few things which I'll make you write also. We'll see a few pictures maybe. But just wait for me to kind of go through the whole topic. So after that you can start asking your questions, okay? But just listen. I just want a little bit of your, what should I say, a little more attention than you normally like to give. So please do that. Let's first understand what exactly is immunity. We keep hearing this term after the pandemic. This has been like something which everybody is talking about. Every brand, new products, everything is talking about immunity. So what is basically this immunity? You see this picture. This is a very well described idea of immunity. So there's this person. He's standing with a shield and there are different microorganisms which are not able to come past this shield. So this is your immunity, basically the self-defense of your body. The body is trained to fight any microorganisms, to fight any pathogens which are attacking, and to also fight allergy. You can have allergy to dust particles. You can have an allergy to pollen grains. What is that allergy basically? It is a body's reaction to protect itself against anything which it deems that this is harmful. Okay? So, let's see this. We are going to discuss how this system is working. Let's just write down what is immunity first. Immunity is the balanced state. Immunity is the balanced state of organisms, balanced state of organisms having adequate defenses to fight infection and have adequate tolerance to avoid allergy. Okay. So immunity in the body, it works as two types of immunity basically. These terms are very important. In a lot of exams, you are just asked these terms and you are asked to match them with a particular example. So the first one is innate immunity, and the second type is acquired or adaptive immunity. Innate immunity or acquired or adaptive immunity. Now think about this as a matter of defense. The body has to handle something which has come, and the body will have different ideas, different mechanisms to defend itself. Some of these would come into play once the attacker has come. Okay, a bacteria has come, so the body will do some things to attack this bacteria, right? This is one process. The second process would be that even before you identify what has come, you should have a direct line of attack. That direct line of act, or that always ready, okay? Simply putting, that one line of attack or one line of self-defense which is always ready. There might be an attack or there might not be an attack. That would be the innate immunity. So this is something which you are born with, and it is always there, and it is not specific. It's not that bacteria will come, it will behave differently, or virus will come, it will behave differently. No, that's not how it works. Innate immunity is, I will give you examples just now, okay? Then it will become more clear what am I exactly trying to say. Innate immunity is non-specific, okay? It is the first line of our defense, and it is always there. Right from when you are born, this is a ready apparatus. I'll give you 3 types of innate immunity, and I'll make you write also. It will become more clear. Let's first write the definition, then I am going to write down the types on the board. Please write down. Innate immunity. It is the non-specific response which is activated immediately, forming the first line of defense of the body. Okay, forming the first line of defense of the body. Now let's see what do we mean by this. When I give you examples, you will yourself realize that yes, this is the first line of defense and this is immediately activated. First one is, please write this down, physical barriers. Physical barriers. And what would these physical barriers be? Your skin and mucous membrane. Skin and mucous membrane. So skin is the outermost covering of the body and mucous membrane is the covering of your organs. Okay, internally your organs are covered by a mucous membrane and outside your body is covered by the skin. Now skin is your protective layer. So you must have noted that whenever you have a skin injury, there's a tear in your skin or some injury you've got, when you put some medicine, you put Savlon on it, you clean it. Why? Because you don't want infection. That infection is possible it is possible for that infection to go inside the body because now the skin has broken down. That means till the time the skin was intact, it was acting as a barrier. So this is a physical barrier, okay, preventing infection of any kind to go inside. It is non-specific, like I said, that it's not that the skin will say, oh, parasite has come, you please come inside. Bacteria, no, you can't come. No specificity here, right? Or it's not that the skin will act differently, it will suddenly change its color when a virus has come. That's not going to happen, right? The skin is skin. It's going to do the same work. Its response is non-specific to any kind of an attack which is coming. It is just a barrier which is there, which is going to protect your body, and inside the same job is done by your mucous membrane in the different organs. Okay, so this is the first type of innate immunity which the body has. Second one is chemical barriers. So there can be some chemicals in the body who are going to destroy these microorganisms. Okay, and where would these chemicals be present? These chemicals are present in your saliva, in your tears. Okay, you might have heard that tears are also supposed to be having a purpose of cleaning the eyes. Now, how are they cleaning the eye? They're cleaning the eye by acting as chemical barriers, destroying anything which is harmful. Also, inside your body, we have HCl in the stomach, which is doing the same job. This acid is going to degrade your microorganism, forming as the first line of defense, non-specific. Why I say first line is because the saliva is there, right? The saliva is there in your mouth, or you have the capacity to produce saliva or tears irrespective of an attack or not. Right? You might have seen sometimes that something enters your eye, right? Some dust particle or anything, and you start getting tears. That's a protective response of the body, right? It is there. It will immediately start doing its work when needed. Whenever exposed, these things come into play. Okay? The last one, the third type, are a type of cells which are there. We say this is cellular defense. Some cells are also there. We call these as natural killer cells. They can also be naturally present to kill certain microorganisms or pathogens which are there. So these, we will talk about them. These are white blood cells. White blood cells, I mean not all white blood cells, so I will not write white blood cells. You can just write down the names of these cells: neutrophils and monocytes. So these are your natural killer cells. Just note these examples down. Neutrophils and monocytes, these are white blood cells which act as cellular defenses. Okay, so please, I hope you have written this down so that we can come to adaptive or acquired immunity. Okay. Now this adaptive or acquired immunity, this would be a specific response. Okay. Like for innate immunity, we said natural response, first line of defense, non-specific. Acquired is specific. That means a different type of response would be there if a bacteria is there. Another different type of response would be there if a virus is there. If a fungus is there, then a third kind of response is there. So this response is acquired after exposure. It is developed after exposure. It is not automatically present, but it is going to be adapted or acquired based on what is the kind of attack which is happening. Okay, how this is going to work, I'm just going to explain this, but here just focus on this idea that this is a specific response. This will be acquired or adapted. Why I'm saying acquired? Because you have to first identify, right? Something has gone inside the body. The body will first see कि भाई आया क्या है? Is it a bacteria? Is it a virus? Is it a fungus? Is it a pollen grain? Is it a dust particle? Right? Is it a venom from some animal? Right? What has come inside the body will first identify, adapt to it, acquire a response, and then give a specific response to tackle. So this will take time. If we compare it to innate immunity is instantaneous. It will act fast. This will take time. This will take more time to act, but the response is more specific, so it is a stronger response, and it helps us to prevent a particular disease. Okay, we'll see how this works. Okay, this is our next thing, but just in a few lines, write on what is acquired and immunity, acquired or adaptive immunity, then we go on further. Write down acquired or adaptive immunity. Acquired or adaptive immunity. It is a specific immune response. It is a specific immune response which is developed after exposure of the immune system, after exposure of the immune system. Exposure just means that you come in contact with anything against which you are trying to get a response. After exposure of the immune system, it is slower than the innate immunity. It is slower than the innate immunity. Okay. So now I'm going to talk to you about how this adaptive or acquired immunity is working. For that, we have to understand the functioning of this one particular type of white blood cells. So white blood cells in your body, they're supposed to be acting for the defense mechanism. Okay, they are cells of the immune system, and one particular type of white blood cells are called lymphocytes. Okay, one particular type of white blood cells are called lymphocytes. And we're going to see how they are working, how they are giving us this acquired or adaptive immunity. So there are two types of lymphocytes. Okay, please write this down. Lymphocytes are white blood cells, and there are two types of lymphocytes. One is the B cells, the other one is T cells. B cells and T cells, two types of lymphocytes. Okay? Now, how is their work different? These B cells, it says, so this picture says, I attack invaders outside the cell. Okay. So B cells attacks the invaders through production of antibodies. We are going to just now see what are antibodies, how they work. Here just remember, B cells give our body an antibody mediated immune response. I'm just now going to show you how these antibodies are being produced. What are these antibodies, right? Just give me a few more minutes. The second type of cells, T cells, what do they do? The T cell is saying, I attack infected cells. Okay, so T cell is directly destroying a cell which is infected. Okay, so this cell will destroy another infected cell. So here we say this is cell mediated immune response. Right? So T cells are those cells which will destroy the infected cells. So we say this is cell mediated immune response. All this is a part of your acquired or adaptive immunity only. And B cells are going to produce antibodies to do this job. So they attack invaders outside the cell. Okay. They attack invaders outside the cells. They are not going to do anything with the cells, but they are giving antibodies. This is the antibody which is going to destroy those cells. So here T cells will do direct destruction, B cells will do the destruction part through antibodies. Okay, we have to study how both of these are working, right? That's what I'm going to do next. Here what I want from you is, you should write this down, you should have this in your notebooks, that there are white blood cells called lymphocytes. They are of two types. One is B cells. B cells produce antibodies, give us antibody mediated immune response. T cells, they attack the infected cells and give us cell mediated immune response. So this is what I want in your notebook. Please make it a point that you have noted this down. Okay, so I have one question from a previous question which was set. So I've been asked that it has not been specified diabetes 1 or 2, which diabetes 1 can be a genetic variation. So see, this is the problem. When you know more also, then you get confused, right? Let me take you back to that question before I go on further into this. देखो, you are asking me कि भाई diabetes कौन से type का है, 1 or 2, that is not mentioned. How does it matter? You have these two diseases. ठीक है, you have hemophilia, you have diabetes, and you have these two options: genetic disease or hormonal disease, right? Even if you tell me कि भाई type 1 है, type 2 है, तो diabetes can be genetic. It is fine. Diabetes can be genetic. I am not negating that. But the point is, answer तो इसी में से चाहिए ना. You need the answer from this. So for this, you have to fit hemophilia somewhere. Even if you say कि भाई diabetes qualifies for both, for hormonal also, for genetic also. But hemophilia does not qualify for both. Hemophilia तो सिर्फ genetic ही हो सकता है ना. So ultimately we have to find the best possibility of the answer. right? There is another disease which is not associated with insulin also, वो भी पढ़ेंगे हम. That's also a hormonal disorder, but that is a disease called diabetes insipidus. So वो भी हो सकता था. But again, hemophilia cannot be hormonal. So best option with us is option B only, right? This is not a descriptive type question where there is a possibility of assigning both these aspects or describing diabetes in both the forms. You have to ultimately give me an answer. And why this has diabetes as hormonal is because hemophilia cannot be hormonal. Hemophilia cannot be a deficiency disease. Hemophilia cannot be a fungal disease. So most appropriate option for hemophilia is genetic only. We don't have that choice. इसी में से आंसर बनाना ना हमको. That's the beauty of a multiple choice question. Right? I understand the logic, the standpoint from where you are coming, but for the purpose of getting you to an answer, it doesn't really work. Okay. Now let's see what are antibodies, what are antigens. Right from the time we entered in the world of COVID, we have been talking about this. We talk about antigen test, antibody test. So it's important that we know this. We take an idea about this. कि भाई ये है क्या? What is this whole fuss? So we have our immune system, which is doing the job of providing us immunity. We've spoken about B cells and T cells, B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes doing this job. Now we are talking about B lymphocytes here, right? And we'll see how they are working. So B lymphocytes are going to recognize some things as potential harmful things to the body. Okay, so B cells, in order to attack, I said that B cells will produce antibodies and this will be an acquired adaptive response. But for them to produce antibodies, they first have to identify something, right? They have to identify something as an enemy. Only then they will do their job. So anything which can stimulate our immune system, okay, anything which can stimulate our B cells, that would be an antigen. Okay, so antigen is anything which stimulates the immune system. So anything, it can be a bacteria, it can be a virus, it can be a fungus, it can be cells from some other organism, it can be blood from another organism, right? It can be venom from some animal. Animals bite, you know, and our body has reactions against the venom of some snakes or some other animals. Even plants at times, some plant products are there against which the body gives a reaction. All of those things which have the potential of stimulating your body, stimulating the immune system, stimulating the immune response, that would qualify as an antigen. It's a very broad-based term. Okay, anything, any particular part of an organism, any particular part of a different human being, anything which comes into your body and the body's immune system becomes stimulated, that would be an antigen. Okay, just understand this simple idea that anything which the body recognizes as an antigen would be the thing which stimulates your immune system. Okay, if you get something in your body and it doesn't stimulate the immune system, like you're eating food, right? Your body is not having a reaction against the food, right? So that's not an antigen. But maybe if you have something harmful, maybe you take something poisonous, the body will have a reaction. So that would qualify as an antigen because it stimulates the immune system. So it is the immune system's job to identify what is harmful to the body. And whatever is harmful to the body, what the B cells do, the B cell produce antibodies against it. So once something has been recognized as an antigen, antibodies are produced. Now what are these antibodies? These antibodies are proteins. All antibodies are proteins. Antigen can be anything. Antigen can be protein, carbohydrate, fat, any kind of chemical composition can be there for the antigen, but an antibody will always be a protein. Okay, so it is the protein which is produced in response to the antigen. And this is a specific protein, right? Look at this picture. So these are bacteria. Okay, these are bacteria, and this is your angry B cell. So the B cell has recognized that bacteria are coming into the body. So what do these B cells do? They start producing antibodies, okay, antibodies, and these antibodies, what is the role of antibody? That antibody is going to destroy the cells which are antigen. So in this case, it is the bacterial cells which are considered antigenic. So your antibody which are specific to these particular bacteria, they will hit it and they will be destroyed. So now like this one is saying, I'm hit, I'm hit, please run away without me. Okay, this is the whole idea. The body recognizes something, it stimulates the immune system starts doing its job. What is the job of the immune system? B cells in particular in this case, they produce antibodies. These antibodies are specific to the antigen and they will destroy the antigen. That is their job. If in place of this bacteria, if we had a virus, different kind of antibodies would be produced. Okay, if we have snake venom, different kinds of antibodies would be produced. Okay, in each case, when we said that acquired adaptive immunity is specific, why we've said that is because response will be different. Based on what needs to be destroyed, accordingly the antibody will be produced. So antibody for all antigens would be different. Okay, specific response. Write down 2 lines about what is an antigen and what is an antibody. An antigen is any agent which triggers an immune response. Any agent which triggers an immune response. And antibody, it is the protein produced by the B cells or by the B lymphocytes. It is the protein produced by the B cells or the B lymphocytes in response to the specific antigen. Okay. Now we are going to see how T cells work. Okay. So we've seen how B cells are doing their job, how B cells are acting, how they are providing us protection by antibody mediated immune response. Now let's see how the T cells work. This is a process of phagocytosis. The process is called phagocytosis. What happens is, like there is a cell, there is a virus or a virus infected cell, anything could be there. Okay, this is just the general process of phagocytosis which I am trying to explain here. Okay, so the cell is there, here is the virus and you want to destroy this. So what will happen is the plasma membrane or the cell membrane of this cell, it will grow. It will grow in a shape that it can encircle it, it can invaginate or it can engulf. Can engulf it, it will bring it inside its cytoplasm and it will destroy it. Okay, and this will be all the things which will be destroyed, it will be absorbed in the phagosome. Phagosome is nothing but the vacuole. I hope you remember the vacuole. Anything which has to be stored, which is left, that would be stored in the vacuole. Okay, this is the basic idea, which is phagocytosis. It will apply to many other places also, like your neutrophils and monocytes will also follow the same process. The T cells also follow this process. So basically they are destroying anything which is harmful, any harmful cell, infected cell, or the whole virus also they can kill by invaginating, by engulfing it, and then using the enzymes and destroying the thing. This is the process of phagocytosis. Right? So one way is through antibodies you do a destruction. The second way is through cells you do a process of destruction. Write down what is phagocytosis. Phagocytosis, it is a process, okay, it is a process by which a cell uses its plasma membrane to engulf a large particle and then digest it. To engulf a large particle and then digest it. Okay. Fine. Now just take a moment and see if you have understood everything till here. Then I will take you further. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break here, right? And we come back after the break to continue further into the concept of immunity. We will talk about different types of adaptive immunity further, and also we will discuss vaccination at that point. Okay? Till then, just see if you have understood all of these words. You've understood what is the meaning of innate, you've understood what is the meaning of acquired adaptive immunity, and if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask. Keep posting. Okay, Abhishek has asked me to explain B cells and T cells and antigen and antibodies. ठीक है. Okay, देखो. फिर से देखो. Lymphocyte. If you have not written, please make it a point. You write this. बहुत simple बता रही हूँ. Non-technical. Okay. If anybody has any confusion, B cells. Basically, what are they supposed to do? This is a way in which we want to give immunity, provide defense, attack all harmful things. How are we going to do that? B cells do this by producing antibodies. B cells का काम है antibodies produce करना, and these antibodies are going to attack. Like if there is a bacteria which has to be taken care of, these antibodies will destroy that. The second type of lymphocytes are T cells. T cells, what do? They destroy cells. T cells are not producing anything. They are directly going and destroying some things. Okay, so if a virus has come for attack, T cell is not going to produce anything. T cell itself will go and kill that virus. It will destroy that virus. So this, you imagine, doesn't need any weapon, nothing. It will go and directly kill. This is T cell. B cell will produce antibodies, and then antibodies will kill the cell. So B cells directly are not doing anything. They are only producing antibodies. Okay, and antibodies then kill the cell. Here T cells, they give direct killing, their job is to kill, B cells' job is to produce antibodies. So two different ways, purpose is same, we have to kill, we have to destroy anything which has come to attack the body. ठीक है, ये absolutely simplified version है, it cannot be more simplified than this. तो B cells के लिए हम बोलते हैं, we use the term here कि this is antibody mediated response, because first antibodies will be produced, then cells will be destroyed. For T cells, there is no such thing. It is directly this T cell itself is killing. So this is cell mediated response. Two types of immune responses, two types of lymphocytes. The purpose is same, that they have to destroy, just that both these cells are acting differently. Now antibodies and antigen, ठीक है, अब ये देख लेते हैं एक बार. Antigen word I am going to use a lot more, so it should be very clear. Please listen carefully. Antigen is anything which comes into the body and stimulates the immune system. We are saying that our body has an immune system and our body has a process of immunity. And we are also saying this immunity means that we are providing self-defense. Okay. So just think about this way, that somebody is there knocking on your door. Okay. That person can be a relative, that person can be a friend, or that person can be a thief. Okay, let's say not knocking but standing outside your house. Now how you respond to that person will depend on first idea that you have to recognize this. Okay, so you maybe see the person from the window. If you know that person, you know that okay, this person is not doesn't pose any harm for you, doesn't pose any danger. So you might open the door, you might ask the person to come inside. But if you know that this is some dangerous element, you know, or maybe some person you saw on the news as a runaway convict or something, so in that case your response will be different. You would think of a way to attack this person. You would think of a way to protect yourself. You might call the police, right? Lekin in order to have your response as to open the door or to keep the door closed, you first have to see. Without seeing the person, you cannot decide. You will not call the police on everyone, right? So whatever things which the body identifies as criminals, okay, like in this case, whichever things body identifies as criminals, or the body identifies that this is something which can be damaging to my body, all those things are called antigens. All those things which can be harmful to the body, right? Who will decide this? The body itself will decide, no, that okay, this is harmful. And if it is harmful, what the body will do is, it will start its immune system. Ki chalo, start the defense process, right? So anything in the body, anything, okay, bacteria, virus, cell, pollen grain, poison, harmful chemical, anything in the body which the body's immune system recognizes, the body's immune system says it is harmful, and the body's immune system start protecting itself against that thing, whatever that thing is, that harmful, that dangerous, that criminal, is called the antigen. Okay. So in simple words, anything which comes to your body and can stimulate your immune system, that is going to be called as an antigen. It is an antigen for your body because it has stimulated your immune system. It has activated the system of self-defense in your body. Fine. What is the response? In response to an antigen, we have an antibody. This is the body's response. The antibody is a protein which is produced in the body, which is supposed to destroy the antigen. Now, once you have recognized that, okay, this is something harmful which has come inside the body, so you can't just recognize and sit, right? The immune system has identified, okay, this is an antigen, this is harmful for me. So it will not just sit like that, right? It will do some action also because it has to provide self-defense. So this defense will be in the form of antibody production. So antibodies are specific proteins which will be produced against antigens, and when we have an antigen antibody for a particular antigen, the antigen will be destroyed. That is the whole idea. Antibodies destroyed antigens, and these antibody will be specific. So depending on the kind of antigen, there is going to be an antibody. If the antigen is a bacteria, different kind of antibody would be present. If the antigen is a virus, a different kind of antibody would be there, right? So because we have to destroy it, so first we identify it, then we prepare antibody, and antibody then destroys the antigens. Okay? So I'm hoping this should be clear. Okay, so I've been asked that which is activated first, B cells or T cells? Okay, see, now this is a complexity which is not, I mean, we study these as isolated ideas, but it is not that these processes are happening selectively in the body. Okay, all these processes are happening simultaneously. When the body will trigger an immune response, it is going to activate all its fronts. So there's nothing like this, something is going to happen first, something is going to happen later on, right? It is a complex process. We have simplified it into smaller parts for the purpose of our understanding, but otherwise the whole process is taking place entangled as one whole process. Okay, sometimes for one particular antigen, one response can be more prominent. For another particular antigen, the other type of response could be more prominent. That kind of variation would be there in our body because again, there is a lot of dynamic involved here, but it's not like they are separate processes or they'll follow one after the other. All of this is going ahead in the body together. Okay? All right. So let me take a break and then we'll continue from this.
We all start life as one single cell. Then that cell divides and we're 2 cells, then 4, then 8. Cells form tissues, tissues form organs, organs form us. These cell divisions, by which we go from a single cell to 100 trillion cells, are called growth. And growth seems like a simple thing because when we think of it, we typically think of someone getting taller, or later in life, wider. But to cells, growth isn't simple. Cell division is an intricate chemical dance that's part individual, part community-driven. And in a neighborhood of 100 trillion cells, sometimes things go wrong. Maybe an individual cell's set of instructions, or DNA, gets a typo, what we call a mutation. Most of the time the cell senses mistakes and shuts itself down, or the system detects a troublemaker and eliminates it. But enough mutations can bypass these fail-safes, driving the cell to divide recklessly. That one rogue cell becomes 2, then 4, then 8. At every stage, the incorrect instructions are passed along to the cell's offspring. Weeks, months, or years after that one rogue cell transformed, you might see your doctor about a lump in your breast. Difficulty going to the bathroom could reveal a problem in your intestine, prostate, or bladder. Or a routine blood test might count too many white cells or elevated liver enzymes. Your doctor delivers the bad news. It's cancer. From here, your strategy will depend on where the cancer is and how far it's progressed. If the tumor is slow growing and in one place, surgery might be all you need, if anything. If the tumor is fast-growing or invading nearby tissue, your doctor might recommend radiation or surgery followed by radiation. If the cancer has spread, or if it's inherently everywhere like a leukemia, your doctor will most likely recommend chemotherapy, or a combination of radiation and chemo. Radiation and most forms of chemo work by physically shredding the cell's DNA, or disrupting the copying machinery. But neither radiation nor chemotherapeutic drugs target only cancer cells. Radiation hits whatever you point it at, and your bloodstream carries chemotherapeutics all over your body. So what happens when different cells get hit? Let's look at a healthy liver cell, a healthy hair cell, and a cancerous cell. The healthy liver cell divides only when it's stressed. The healthy hair cell divides frequently, and the cancer cell divides even more frequently and recklessly. When you take a chemotherapeutic drug, it will hit all of these cells. And remember that the drugs work typically by disrupting cell division, so every time a cell divides, it opens itself up to attack. And that means that the more frequently a cell divides, the more likely the drug is to kill it. So remember that hair cell? It divides frequently and isn't a threat. And there are other frequently dividing cells in your body like skin cells, gut cells, and blood cells. So the list of unpleasant side effects of cancer treatment parallels these tissue types: hair loss, skin rashes, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, weight loss, and pain. That makes sense because these are the cells that get hit the hardest. So in the end, it's all about growth. Cancer hijacks cells' natural division machinery and forces them to put the pedal to the metal, growing rapidly and recklessly. But using chemotherapeutic drugs, we take advantage of that aggressiveness, and we turn cancer's main strength into a weakness.
Okay, so going ahead further, we're going to talk about two more types of immunity. This also comes under your adaptive immunity. The terms are active immunity and passive immunity. So antibody-antigen mechanism that takes predominance in understanding these ideas. So these terms and their examples, they're very important. So again, you need to have very, very, very precise clarity on these topics. Antigen, antibody. So what I told you was that an antibody is needed to destroy an antigen. Okay, antigen is something which is going to be harmful, and in order to destroy that, the body needs to produce antibodies. Okay, we have a few questions. Let me take those first. Can you give examples of which type of agents require the actions of B cells? Or so all of these, Archana has asked me which type of agents, viruses, bacteria, require the action of B cells and T cells. So all of these would be required. Whatever has the potential of causing a disease to you or causing any kind of harm to your body, that would all be requiring actions from B or T cells. Your virus, bacteria, malarial parasite, we saw so many different types of diseases. All of those would require an immune response against them. All of them require B cells and T cells, right? There's no point of this having to be a matter of example. All of these are antigens only. Okay? And then Ishika has asked, no. Ishika is saying, can we say T cell is a type of B cell? No, absolutely not. See, let me tell you this one more thing about B cells and T cells. So all the cells of your blood, they are formed in the bone marrow. So bone marrow is a tissue which is found in your long bones. In the bones of your hand and feet, these are your long bones. In that, there is this soft tissue material, bone marrow, which produces all the different types of cells. Okay, all the different types of cells. So B cells and T cells both are formed here. T cells have a special property that after being formed in the bone marrow, T cells go into another gland called thymus. There is another gland in the body, somewhere in your neck, called the thymus gland. The T cells get its name from thymus gland, and after being formed in the bone marrow, these T cells go into the thymus gland, and that is where they mature. So they have distinct pathways. And Ishika, one very basic concept you are getting unnecessarily confused with. See, we are saying this is a cell. You remember we studied in detail what exactly is a cell, what is a cell made up of. It has a nucleus, it has a cytoplasm, it has different organelle, right? So T cell is a type of cell, and B cell forms antibodies. Antibody, I told you, is a type of protein. Remember we studied proteins? Proteins are your structures of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, right? Arranged in a distinct pattern through amino acids joined by peptide bonds. So these are entirely different things. A cell cannot be a protein. I mean, there is no correlation, no comparison at all. So whatever we have done earlier, you don't have to forget it, right? There is a reason why we studied the basics. There is a reason why we studied what is a cell, what is a protein, what is a lipid, because it's going to be applied somewhere in future also. So think about these terms. This is something technical, okay? This is science. You cannot draw a correlation like that. Fine? All right. Coming to this aspect again, antigen and antibody. Simple rule is, if you have an antigen, take an antibody, antibody will destroy the antigen. Okay. Now this antibody can either be produced in the body, or there is a special possibility where we can give this antibody from outside also. So even if we are giving the antibody from outside, it's going to do the same job. What is its job? The job is to kill the antigen, right? We have a specific antigen in the body and we have to get rid of it. So for that we need an antibody. So there are two ways in which we can get these antibodies. Active immunity is a process in which antibodies are produced in the body. Your body, when it comes across an antigen, it produces antibodies. This is the normal process which we've studied just now also. We call this as active immunity. There is a special condition in which we can give these antibodies from outside also. So in this way, the body is getting antibodies, but it is not producing these antibodies. I'll give you examples, so then it will become more clear. Just give me a minute. So here we say antibodies are given from outside. Purpose is the same, to destroy the antigen. But the way we are getting these antibodies, that would be different. Okay? Let me give you examples here. First one is a natural way of getting an antibody, and this is through mother's milk. So you might have heard the significance of breastfeeding children once they are born. So this mother's milk, it has this advantage that it contains antibodies. When the baby is born, it doesn't have a very strong immune system. So the baby's body is not ready to produce all the antibodies against the different diseases which can come. So the baby's mother produces these antibodies, and through this milk, those antibodies reach the baby. So if you are making the baby drink cow's milk or buffalo's milk, so that milk is going to have antibodies against those diseases which the cow is suffering from or the buffalo is suffering from. That is why in place of that milk, you have to breastfeed, you have to give mother's milk so that the baby gets antibodies against the diseases which impact human beings. Okay, so mother's milk is a source of natural antibodies for the baby. Okay, so the baby's body is not forming antibodies. Antibodies are coming from outside, but this is a natural process which is taking place. So we say this is mother's milk. Is one example. I'll give you one more example of artificially doing this. This is like naturally it is happening in from outside, but we can do this also on our own, right? Take the example of anti-snake venom. So a snake has bit a person. We give an antidote for that. You're aware, right? When the snake is bit a person, snake venom or the snake's poison that is entering your body, that is harmful for your body. So we give an anti-snake venom. This anti-snake venom is nothing but it is antibodies against this snake venom. So the snake venom can also be acting as an antigen to your body, and we can immediately give anti-snake venom. This anti-snake venom will go inside the body. It has antibodies which will destroy the antigen, which is the snake venom, and you will be saved. Because otherwise this can have lethal tendencies also. People can die because of snake venom, of some of those poisonous snakes. So here we are artificially doing that. We are administrating antibodies from outside to counter the antigen, right? So this is passive immunity. Okay, passive immunity means we are giving antibodies from outside. Please write this down in one line. Passive immunity. Passive immunity in this type of immunity, the antibodies are administered to a person from outside to protect against certain antigens. Okay, and active immunity would be when it is produced in the person's body. So passive mein I hope you have written these two examples: natural mother's milk which contain antibodies for the baby, and artificially you can write the example of anti-snake venom. Okay, then write down active immunity. This immunity results from production of antibodies by the immune system in response to the antigen. Now let's see the examples of this also. Again we will have natural again is the normal process. Whenever you have any infection, any bacteria, any virus coming into your body, right, any infection which the body encounters, the body produces antibodies against it. Okay, you have COVID infection, so what is going to happen is your body will produce antibodies against COVID. Okay, so that's a natural way. Whenever you have an infection, your body will produce antibodies, right? Anshul has asked me about plasma therapy during corona pandemic. Is it related to the concept of phagocytosis. So Anshul, you brought in a great example, but you are in a way you misfitted it. It has absolutely nothing to do with phagocytosis. I'll tell you where plasma therapy fits in here. What are we doing in plasma therapy? We are bringing in antibodies. So there is a person who was infected by COVID-19 virus. So his body has recognized COVID virus as an antigen and is producing antibodies through the normal process, natural process. This person's body has produced antibodies, so he has recovered from the disease. There can be another person whose body is not very healthy, whose immune system is not very strong, and he is not able to produce adequate amount of antibodies because of any reason. His weak body, or he has any other diseases, but his body is not doing this job of natural active immunity. Okay, his body is not producing antibodies. So what we can do is, we can take the plasma. Plasma is the liquid part of the blood. We have to study that, right? We can take the plasma from that person who got cured from COVID. That person's body, because he got cured, he had antibodies. Antibodies to fight this COVID virus. So we take the plasma from that person and give it to this person whose body is not adequately producing antibodies. So basically, by transfer of this plasma, what we are doing is, we are transferring antibodies. So that is a form of passive immunity. Okay, it is a form of passive immunity because we are giving antibodies to this person from outside. Okay, and it's going to be an artificial process because it's not taking place in nature, we are doing it. We are using some lab procedures to do this. So artificial passive immunity would be what your plasma therapy is. Basically what we are just doing is, we are transferring antibodies naturally formed in one person to another person whose body is not able to make antibodies properly. Okay, I hope Anshul you have understood this. The second example of artificially producing active immunity in the body, or artificially preparing the body to produce antibodies, is through vaccination. And this is what we are going to study after this. We are going to study how this vaccination works, how this vaccination is an artificial form of active immunity. Okay, why it is artificial is because naturally the infection has not taken place, right? Anybody who is being vaccinated, that person does not have the disease, but still he will be doing this job of producing antibodies. We are going to now see how that works. Okay, just leave this idea for the moment. Give me 10 more minutes. I will explain vaccination and then you will understand this. Okay, let's start with vaccination process. For that, we have to first see how B cells are actually working. Okay, so we're going to study how B cells work. Okay, what is their process, what is their mechanism. And this is very important for you because you're going to be reading about a lot of different types of vaccine. The basic idea would remain the same. First, let's see how naturally things happen in your own body. So, there is an antigen. There is an antigen which comes and attacks your body. Okay. So, the B cells, they will recognize this antigen, right? The B cells will recognize an antigen. Antigen would be something which will stimulate the immune system, so B cells are stimulated. What will B cells do once they are stimulated? What is their job? Their job is to produce antibodies against this antigen. So, B cells produce antibodies. Okay. Now this particular antigen has come into the body for the first time. Okay. Earlier the body had no idea about this antigen. There has been no exposure. So this is the first time that exposure has taken place. So you can write here first exposure. So because it is the first exposure, so the B cells are going to take time, the immune system is going to take time first to recognize, then to understand, okay, what has to be done, what kind of antibodies would need to be produced. So they produce it, but they take time. So this response which is there is actually slow and it is low intensity. So this is a slow and low intensity response. Why slow and low intensity? Because the first time this antigen has come, the body needs time to understand what has come, what has attacked. Right? But the body has one very amazing property, and that is called memory. Okay? So this B cells, once they know how to produce a particular antibody, they can store this information. And this is called immunological memory. This immunological memory or immune memory simply means that the B cells will now remember which antigen came, and it will also remember how to produce antibodies against that antigen. That information gets stored. Okay. Now what happens is this same antigen, okay, this will come and attack again. A second time it might attack. So second exposure. Second exposure, but of the same antigen. Okay. So the same antigen, but now it comes for the second time. The B cells have a memory now. So this memory is going to be stimulated. Okay. This memory is going to be stimulated and antibody production will be there again. Same antibodies have to be produced, but the B cells have already done that, so they know it this time. So what is going to happen is that this time, because of the memory which is there, we have a high intensity fast response. And this high intensity fast response is fast enough or severe enough in order to prevent the disease. So now, because we had the memory, we knew how to deal with the antigen, there is not going to be a disease. Okay, there is not going to be a disease. Fine. Let me elaborate a little bit more on this idea, right? Some diseases have a very long-lasting immune memory. Okay, so diseases like chicken pox. So you might have heard about a disease, chicken pox. You might have also experienced or had that disease when you were children. So chicken pox, they say normally that it doesn't strike again. People don't get chicken pox again normally, right? Why does this happen? It's because they have a lifelong immune memory for chicken pox. Once the body is faced with chicken pox virus, it stores that information in its immune memory, and the next time whenever you come across the chicken pox virus, your body will immediately start producing antibodies. A lot of antibodies will be produced and you will not get chicken pox again. Okay. So for this kind of a disease, what we say is that the body has natural immunity against this disease. So once you are in that position that you do not have the disease, we say that there is natural immunity against this particular disease. Okay. The second thing which you have to remember here is that not all diseases have this property, right? You might be aware there are some diseases which attack people every year, right? Like chikungunya is there, dengue is there. There is an almost an epidemic of dengue, chikungunya every year. Every year monsoon season may or malaria is there, right? Whenever it rains, you know that you're going to have this, and people can have it every year also. So that means for those diseases, this immune memory is not very long lived. Okay, this immune memory or the natural immunity of a disease is not there. It doesn't exist for very long time. For some diseases, it can be that this memory is there for a few years. For some, it can be for a few weeks. For some, it can be for a few months. For some, it can be lifelong, like chickenpox example I gave you. So the response of different diseases will have will be different in terms of the kind of memory or the kind of natural immunity the body will have for those diseases. Okay, this is one point you have to remember, that immune memory stays for different time periods, or natural immunity is different for different diseases. For some it might just be a few days. Also everything is possible. Now depending on this property, this would be the property of the antigen or of the pathogen which is attacking, right? So depending on this property, we can use this idea to develop vaccines. Okay. Now vaccine is a preventive treatment. Okay, preventive means you have to give a vaccine before a disease has taken place. Okay, before a disease has taken place, you will give a vaccine. Now, what do you do in the vaccine? You are making use of this mechanism only, right? The first thing which you have to identify is how long is the natural memory or the natural immunity for that disease there. If it is a few days, then there is no point of giving a vaccine, right? Because after a few days again the person will be susceptible because there is no memory. But if a long-lived memory is there, we can utilize that to create a vaccine. What are we going to do? Just broadly understand when we go into the specific things. We know that in the second exposure, we have a high intensity response. The high intensity response which is good enough to prevent a disease from occurring, right? Like chickenpox was not infecting the second time because a high intensity response, a high intensity production of antibodies has combat that chickenpox virus. So this is what we need. We need to take the body to the second response. What we do through a vaccine is we give this first exposure. On our own, we give the body the first exposure. So basically what we are doing is we are giving the body with an antigen. In your vaccine, right, the vaccine which is given, we are giving the antigen. Whatever antigen is causing the disease, we are giving that antigen to the body. The B cells produce antibodies and store this information in the memory. So first response, first exposure हमने खुद ही करवाते हैं, right? We ourselves at our end are giving the first exposure to the body so that it is prepared for the second exposure when the actual attack take place, right? Anything which has a natural immunity against it, we can utilize that concept of natural immunity to vaccinate a person, and it is going to act as a preventive therapy. Now the point of significance here is, if we give the antigen, the person will have the disease. So this is also something which we don't want, right? We do not want that the person himself should suffer from the disease. You're giving a vaccine and you're giving maybe a polio vaccine. What if the person has polio? We don't want that, right? We don't want polio to happen. So what we do is we give this antigen in forms that it is able to have a response but not cause the disease, right? Matlab, it should be active in enough in a way that it stimulates the B cells but it does not cause the disease. Now we are going to see how we can possibly do that. Okay, what are the different forms in which we can give this vaccine so as to make it a point that we have a response but not the disease. I hope you had copied all of this down. So different types of vaccines are there. I'll make you write also a few things about this. The first type of vaccine is an inactivated killed vaccine. Inactivated and killed vaccine. Now what do we do here? We have to take the antigen, that is what we need in our vaccine, but we have inactivated our antigen or inactivated, or you can say killed. Like for COVID virus, I have to make a vaccine. So instead of taking that live COVID virus, what I can do is I can kill that. Chemically or through radiations, it's possible, but I kill that virus. I kill that virus and I give that in a form of vaccine. Now that virus, even if it is, you can say as a dead body, it still has all its structures, it still has all its proteins intact, right? So that proteins are good enough to act as an antigen. Okay, the protein itself is sufficient to stimulate the B cells. So you are giving the inactivated cells, but the proteins on that can still stimulate the B cells produce antibodies, immune memory is created. Your job is done. Okay. Now when the actual COVID virus attacks, it's the same virus against which you've given a vaccine, the body will immediately recognize. Immune memory will be triggered and a severe response would be there. You will not get COVID virus infection. Right? I'll give you examples also of each of these types. First, understand the types. The second option can be live attenuated vaccine. Live attenuated vaccine. So live means this time the organism is alive. But attenuated means that it is weak. So you have weakened it. You've kept it alive, but you have weakened it. So when you have weakened it, what you have basically done is you have taken away its potential to cause the disease. It is weak, it is alive, but it is weak. So it cannot cause the disease, but it is good enough to stimulate the B cells, and that is what we are looking for. Okay? This is the second type. The third type can be a subunit vaccine, and in this we also have conjugate vaccines. Now what is this? I told you, like in the case of COVID virus or in case of some bacteria also, different parts alone can also be antigens, like proteins in the case of this virus, or some polysaccharides in the structure of a bacteria. They itself, they are subunits, okay, they are not the whole organisms, but they are subunits, and they also are sufficient to act as an antigen to stimulate your B cells. So they can also be used alone to act as a vaccine. कि आपने organism दिया ही नहीं, you've just given the protein. Because you know protein has in itself the property of being an antigen, you just give the protein. Or you know that, okay, the polysaccharide on the structure, on the cell membrane of a particular bacteria has the property of being an antigen, you just give that. Conjugate mein, you give more than one unit. Okay, usually it is a protein and polysaccharide together. So you give 2 units two things together, that becomes a conjugate vaccine, right? And the last type can be a nucleic acid based vaccine or a DNA or an RNA vaccine. DNA or an RNA vaccine. So you have to give me this window that I can explain this to you once I have taught DNA and RNA to you. So here you will have to leave this out. Okay, you'll have to leave this out. We will study what is DNA, what is RNA, how DNA changes into RNA. We'll study how that whole mechanism, how they produce proteins. And there again, I will explain this to you. Okay, here just I have mentioned this as a specific type of vaccine. Okay, so please give me this window of explaining this later, right? So whenever you have any vaccine being discussed, just remember this thing. This is the basic idea. I'm going to make you write this also, but just simply remember this. There is an antigen which the B cells recognize, antibodies are produced and memory is created. This memory is what we are interested in. Okay, suppose this memory is there for 6 months, then maybe we can have a vaccine we can give every 6 months. We have certain diseases like tetanus for which they say every 6 months you should get yourself vaccinated. Or there can be something like a tuberculosis vaccine which has a memory for a longer time, and maybe after 10 years or 15 years you would need to give that vaccine again, right? Or other cases would be like polio. Polio infects people only till the age of 5 years, children. So that is why polio vaccine is given only to children below 5 years, because after that the attack of this virus is not there, right? So on this basis we can identify that how frequently we have to give the vaccine. It is a preventive treatment. Basically what we are doing is we are just stimulating the system, creating memory. Anything which does not form a normal memory or a natural immunity, we cannot have a vaccine against it, right? Like common cold is there. Every few months you will have common cold. The viruses, they keep changing, so we cannot have a vaccine against that, right? You also have to understand that how we select this, right? How we select this will also depend on the pathogen. Different pathogens will be active or will have the possibility of working in different setups, right? Like not all of your pathogens, not like, tuberculosis, that vaccine which we have, which we are giving, that is a live attenuated vaccine, the BCG vaccine. That vaccine is given in this form because this is the way in which it is most easily developed, or it is giving the best results. So different permutation combinations are assigned, that how stable is the vaccine, how easily it will be administered, when will it have the least side effects, and based on that we choose which pattern has to be given. Okay. In case of this live attenuated vaccine, there is one specific condition which I want to tell you. If a person has weaker immunity, okay, suppose there is a child with a weaker immunity, maybe because of malnutrition or any reason, in that case, even this weak virus can give you the disease. Okay, even the weaker virus can give you the disease if your immunity is not strong enough, if your body is not strong enough. So there is this condition, like for polio it has been seen, we say it is vaccine derived polio. This is just one example which I am giving. Like your oral polio vaccine which is there, Do Boon Zindagi Ki, all of you have had that. That is a live attenuated vaccine. Okay. So it is now being seen that even the vaccine can give you a disease. Okay, even the vaccine can give you the disease if your immune system is weak. Okay, so this can be further one complication or one aspect most commonly seen with live attenuated vaccine. Okay, let's write this down. In terms of your COVID vaccines, I think that's something which you would be most interested in knowing. The Covaxin which is there, Covaxin, the indigenous vaccine, right, Bharat Tech, that is an inactivated killed vaccine. The Oxford vaccine which we have, Covishield, that is a live attenuated vaccine. And the vaccines which are being administered in USA, so you have Pfizer, right? That is the RNA vaccine. And Moderna also is an RNA vaccine. Sorry. Pfizer and these are mRNA based, RNA based vaccines. We will study about them also, please don't worry. Let's write this down, then if you have any questions, we'll discuss this. Okay? Okay. Vaccination is a process. Vaccination is a process by which a person is made immune, or resistant to an infection by administration of a vaccine. When the body encounters an antigen, for the first time, a low intensity, slow response is given by the B cells. In the way of producing antibodies. The B cells remain sensitized. To this antigen. And immunological memory is created. On secondary exposure of this same antigen, this memory is activated. And a high intensity fast immune response a high intensity, fast immune response is there preventing the disease. Preventing the disease. Okay. This is the rationale for developing vaccines. Now let's write down about the different types of vaccines. First, let's write down inactivated killed vaccine. Inactivated killed vaccine. The microorganism in this case is killed, but the proteins present are still able to create an immune response. Right? So you have one example already of Covaxin. Then you can have the example of injectable polio vaccine. Then influenza vaccine. After this, write down live attenuated vaccine. The microorganism is alive. But it is disabled. So that it does not cause the disease. But retains its capacity to grow. And you have COVID shield here. And then you have rotavirus vaccine. It's also an indigenous vaccine. Rotavirus vaccine. Then you have BCG, MMR. MMR and BCG are vaccines which you get when you're born. BCG, MMR vaccines. Right? Then write down subunit vaccine. This uses specific part of the pathogen, like protein or polysaccharides. An example of a subunit vaccine will be whooping cough tetanus, whooping cough, tetanus, and then write down conjugate vaccine, conjugate vaccine, when more than one subunits are used together in a vaccine. When more than one subunits are used in a vaccine. And there is this very important example from the perspective of India. Pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. This is important. It was a prelims question also this time, and in this year's budget also there has been a specific allocation on this vaccine. This vaccine is supposed to be administered, and its significance is it has been made indigenously in India. Okay, conjugate vaccine. The last one, DNA and RNA vaccine. We will study that when we've done genetics. Okay. Okay. So this brings us to the end of this topic of vaccination. I'm going to take in your questions. And I want you to solve this one question which UPSC asked. It tests a lot of your basic concepts. So see if you can handle this. Solve this question, send me answers. I'll take your questions. So Lakshya has asked what happens to T cells in vaccination. See, vaccination in terms of the role of T cells, as such they are involved in some memory cells, but the direct correlation is through the mechanism of antibody antigen also. So that is the channel which we are invoking, the B cell channel, right? Okay. Phagocytosis is a type of adaptive immunity. Okay, so Tanvi, see phagocytosis, when I told you about phagocytosis, it is a general process. Okay, phagocytosis is a general process. Whenever a cell is bringing another cell inside its body and destroying it, that becomes phagocytosis. So which cells are performing phagocytosis, that will depend on if it is adaptive or if it is innate. So when we studied the examples of two cells, cellular defenses, neutrophils and monocytes, when they are doing it non-specifically. They would attack anything which they think is foreign. Any dead cell they will attack. Okay, any worn out cell they will attack. Any foreign body they will just attack. That would then not be adaptive immunity. But when T cells are doing this job, okay, when we are talking about phagocytosis as a concept in relation to T cells, yes, then it is going to be adaptive immunity. Okay. So Siddharth has asked me that there is a bit of a confusion between innate and active immunity. Okay, so see, you don't have to get confused between innate and active immunity, because that's not the differentiation which we studied. This is going to be very confusing for a lot of you. So in the most ideal scenario, you should be revising this today, otherwise it's all going to mix up. Immunity. फिर से review, okay? Innate immunity. Innate immunity, I said this is non-specific, already existing first line defense. Okay? Non-specific response. That means this would be there. This would be the first thing which the body is going to do. So you don't need a bacteria or a virus to come for these to be present. We have skin here, we have mucous membrane here, we have saliva, we have tears, HCl, and also we have a few cells which are already there in the body in activated state, and whatever will come, they will attack it. They will try and prevent its attack. Irrespective of what is coming, they are going to do their job. Second type we said, acquired or adaptive. This is going to act only when something has come to attack. Otherwise, they are not doing any job. They will become activated. They will develop according to what is coming to the body to attack. So this is a specific response. This starts its work only on exposure. Once some foreign body has come into the body, then they will do their job. Then they will start doing their job. Not like skin. Skin is there. Bacteria or no bacteria, virus or no bacteria, the skin is already there. The tears are already there. They will immediately start work. But not these things. Whatever is in the acquired or in the adapted form of response, right? That is going to be specific. If it is a virus, it's going to act differently. If it is a bacteria, it's going to act differently. And under this acquired type only, we discussed that we have active. When we spoke about antibodies, we discussed that we have active and passive. This is in terms of antibodies. If your body is producing antibodies, we say it is active. If antibodies are coming from outside, the examples which I gave you, you have to remember them. Otherwise, confusion is inevitable. Hoga hi hoga confusion. Passive immunity, mother's milk. Mother's milk is giving you antibodies. Snake venom. Anti-snake venom has the antibodies to fight snake venom. Antibodies coming from outside. Active immunity, antibodies being produced in the body. So, the first case was naturally if you have an infection, like I have COVID infection, my body will develop anti-COVID antibodies. COVID antibodies will be produced in my body. So, this is natural active immunity. But I can do this artificially also. How? I can take a vaccine. What is happening in the vaccine? My body is getting an antigen. I am not infected by COVID, but I am getting an antigen. Right? I might be getting a dead COVID virus. Right? I am getting, maybe I am taking COVID shield. So this is weakened virus. The virus is coming to my body, but this is not something which is coming naturally. I am doing this artificially. Through a vaccine, it is being given to me. So my body recognizes that antigen, starts producing antibodies. Antibody production is in my body only here, right? But the antigen has not attacked me naturally. The antigen has come into my body artificially. So this becomes artificial active immunity. So there is no point of being confused with innate and active. There is absolutely no correlation. You cannot compare these two also. Innate is something which is naturally happening. Active will do its job only after antigen has come. It's not like your skin or the mucous membranes which are already there. After the virus has come inside your body, the body will first recognize it. The B cells will see, okay, something has come. This is an antigen. Let me do something about it. Then it will start producing antibodies. That is what is active immunity. Okay. Let's go on further. Okay, so Manu is saying, does antibody given in passive manner also go in immunological memory? No. Antibody, if you are giving antibody in a passive way, that is not going to go into immune memory. It is only going to go into immune memory if the B cells have produced it. If the B cells are not producing it, it's not forming immunological memory. Okay, Manu? So I think there are further questions also. If an antibody given once in a passive manner, does it stay and that antigen never impacts us? Okay, so again, I think this is a follow-up to the same question that if you're giving antibodies from outside, that is going to be there just combating that antigen at that point of time, but it is not going to be stored in the memory. Okay, and the second thing aspect which was written in that question was that if that antigen changes, ठीक है, जैसे यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम है कोविड के साथ, that they say that COVID is changing form. It has mutated, new strain, right? UK strain, Britain strain has come. So there are concerns that will your vaccine be valid against this? Now it depends on how the vaccine has been created. Okay, suppose there is a vaccine which has just picked out the protein. Okay, it's just picked out the protein of that virus, and the virus has changed form in some way, its DNA has changed, but that protein is still present. So if that protein which we have considered to be the antigen, if that remains the same, the vaccine will be valid. But if it has changed or it has mutated in a form कि अब वो जो protein है which we are considering to be our antigen, that only has changed, right? So the vaccine will not be working. That means even if you would be vaccinated, but now the pathogen has changed. So you can get infected again. I think that's what was written. Okay, one more question, then we will solve the question. UPSC question. Whether regular vaccination will have adverse impact on the health even if for the immunity, like pulse polio. Okay, so it's pulse polio, this is the first thing, which is given on regular basis. Okay, Ravi, so that's actually a very interesting point you have thought about. In terms of impacts of vaccine, now see, this is a pathogen which is entering your body in any form. So there will be some response. So for babies also, you might have observed, if you have some babies in the family or if you remember when you were a baby. So whenever you get vaccinated, some symptoms are inevitable, and one of them is fever. So that impact is there because ultimately it is a pathogen which is entering your body in whatever form, and it can develop some maybe low grade but some disease like symptoms. So some impacts of all vaccines, some slight adverse impacts would be seen, right? In terms of this vaccine, the pulse polio campaign in which every few months you are vaccinating children, so as such it is just, the idea is just to ensure that that immunity is maintained, right? And if you are doing that again and again, so maybe you are just strengthening the memory part, right? Even if earlier, so it might be a possibility that the vaccine was given earlier but it did not get converted, memory was not created or anything, or maybe some children got missed. So in order to ensure that coverage is complete and it is strengthened, it is given again and again. There is no as such adverse health impact of that. Because if immunity would already be there, then the body will combat that with already produced antibodies. If that memory is not strong enough, then it will be strengthened. So as such, no problem with that. Chalo, question. The question says, widespread resistance of malarial parasite to drugs like chloroquine has prompted attempts to develop a malarial vaccine to combat malaria. Now see this question, so wonderfully they want to test all your concepts. They've talked about a disease, malaria, they've spoken to you about resistance, drug resistance, and then they're also talking about vaccination. What is the question? Why is it difficult to develop an effective malarial vaccine? Okay, simple, broad-ended question. Let's read the option. Malaria is caused by several species of Plasmodium. Now this statement in itself is correct. Malaria is caused by a lot of different species or varieties of Plasmodium, but that is no reason for which we cannot create a vaccine. Like I want to tell you about polio. In polio, there are 5 strains which are active, 5 different types of viruses. So we have a pentavalent vaccine. Okay, we have a pentavalent vaccines. All those 5 strains are dealt with together. Okay, in that vaccine, we have different vaccines we can create. So malaria also, if we know what are the different types of plasmodium which are there, we can create vaccines for all of them. So this statement is correct, but this cannot be the reason why we cannot create a vaccine. Next one. Man does not develop immunity. Yeah, this comma is not supposed to be here. So man does not develop immunity to malaria during natural infection. Yes. This is the reason why we cannot create a vaccine. Because natural immunity is not there. Because natural immunity is there, not there, memory is not being created. So we are finding it difficult. There are some vaccines for malaria which have been created, right? There is a continuous attempt to do that also, but again, success rate is not very good. So that's why they're saying it has been difficult, right? Because in a lot of countries, in a lot of sub-Saharan countries, and African countries also, every year people are getting affected, in India, of course, from malaria. So B is going to be the answer to this question. Let me read out the other 2 statements also. Vaccines can be developed only against bacteria. So, this is a very simple question. You should not have gotten confused. So I'm hoping nobody has given C as the answer. I'm going to check. I have not read your answers. Man is only the intermediate host and not the definite host. So intermediate host would be like there are some diseases in which an organism first grows in a particular animal and then comes into man's body, right? So its cycle is completed that way. But in malaria, we know there is no intermediate host, only man is there, man and the vector. The mosquito, man, man, mosquito. Nothing else is there in between, right? So man is the definitive host. This statement is incorrect. There's only one host for malaria, man. Malaria or plasmodium will only infect man, no other thing is there in between. There is a vector which is carrying and then there's man. So this statement is also incorrect. C and D are incorrect. The first statement is correct, but it's not the answer. The answer is B. Answer is B, and Shubham has given me the answer as D, so D is not correct. I have a lot of D's. Okay. Ganjan, Gaurav, and I have Amar saying it's a. तो B किसी ने भी नहीं दिया अरे okay, that's a bad thing. Let me see. No, I have some B's also, thankfully. Pranay says it should be B. Bhupesh says it should be B, I guess. Yeah. Chalo. Again, see, these are the type of questions which require a lot of clarity in your ideas of these concepts, right? So you have to make it a point that it is absolutely clear, otherwise you will not be able to handle this question. So in that case, if you feel that no, you don't feel very confident about it, the best way is to leave these questions also. That would also not be a very bad strategy when you have 100 questions to deal with, right? Okay. Let's see, one more question. Mother's milk is given only once and those antibodies will stay with us for life. No, those antibodies will not stay with you for life, right? Because what happens is antibodies get degenerated after a point of time. The proteins, they will disintegrate, something else will be formed. So till the time you are breastfed, those antibodies stay in the body. Right? After that, the baby's immune system starts developing its own antibodies continuously. Based on whatever antigen it is exposed to, it will make its own antibodies because its immune system develops after some point of time. The antibodies do not stay with you throughout the lifetime. Okay? Okay. Okay, okay. Right. So one more concept for your immune system, one more disease I want to discuss, and that's AIDS. It's based on the immune system. Okay, so we have AIDS. What is the full form of AIDS? Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So that means this is a disease in which your immune system is deficient. Okay. In a very simple way, I am going to explain how this disease works. Okay. The pathogen involved here, the HIV virus. So HIV is human, please keep writing with me, immunodeficiency virus. Okay. So this is a virus which is causing deficiency of your immune system, hence its name. HIV and AIDS. Right? So HIV, if somebody gets tested and has the result saying you are HIV positive. Being HIV positive does not necessarily mean that you have AIDS. This is a disease which will develop from this virus, but this virus might be staying in your body but not doing anything for many, many years. Right? This I told you in the beginning of the class also when we were discussing hepatitis, that this might stay inactive in your bodies for 10 years, 20 years even. That is a very well possibility. When it starts being active, it starts compromising your immunity. That is when we say you have AIDS. So understand this distinction of being HIV positive and having AIDS. This is very important because there is a lot of social stigma also associated with this disease. So you need to understand this. Now what is this virus doing? This HIV virus, this attacks the T cells. T cells are also an important part for providing immunity to the body, and this HIV virus, this does this job, it attacks the T cells. Once the T cells are attacked, what is going to happen is that the person's immunity will be reduced. So this person whose T cells have been attacked by the HIV virus, this person now has a reduced immunity, a reduced immune response, immune system is weak, any way you can put it. So what happens is, because its immune system is not working properly, there is a possibility of this person having different kinds of infections and not being able to heal or recover from those infections because the natural immune system is not working. So these diseases which attack this person are called opportunistic infections. Why we say opportunistic? Because they have taken the opportunity of a weak immune system and attacked the body. Okay. So different opportunistic infections can take place, can attack a person. Now depending on which infections have come and attacked a person, the person will have symptoms associated with that disease. So as such, AIDS does not come with its own set of symptoms, right? It does not come with its own kind of progression. The way AIDS will be manifested in a person, it will be through the different kinds of infection which a person is getting. If this person has tuberculosis, okay, he comes in contact with Mycobacterium tuberculosis, so he will manifest in the form of symptoms of tuberculosis. If there is cholera attacking this person, okay, cholera bacterium, then the person will have cholera. Depending on what kind of infections are attacking, You will have a complexity of symptoms which will develop because whatever disease is attacking is not being cured. Why? Because of a reduced immune system or a weaker immunity. That is the problem. And ultimately, the overall health is degraded because even smaller, simpler infections take very complex forms. So a person will, in this case, have all kinds of symptoms as the advancement or progression of AIDS takes place. So the person will lose weight. There's going to be loss of appetites. Then your lymph glands would be swollen. You can have hair loss also. You can have fever, any kind of manifestation would be there. And it becomes more and more complicated because we do not have a very effective line to kill the virus. This we discussed when we were talking about viral diseases also. That we cannot effectively kill the virus. What we can only do is we can control the viral activity, and what else we do is whatever infections are there, we keep giving treatment for that infections. So what is the problem with AIDS is we cannot completely eliminate the virus, right? As of today, what is the condition? But we can improve the life of a patient by helping him prevent certain diseases, certain kinds of infection, and giving treatment for these infection, improving the condition of life of these people, making it less and less complex for them. That can be done. That is the kind of treatment which is given in this disease. But we cannot do much about virus even with the kind of antiviral drugs we have today. Okay, so this is the simplified idea of AIDS. We have a virus, the virus attacks your T cells, you have reduced immunity, that means makes you more prone towards infections. Okay? This is something you should know. One aspect which we have already studied in some ways, so I also have a question based on that which I want you to answer. The simple question based on transmission of AIDS. UPSC asked it, so I am hoping you will be able to answer this. Okay, so answers coming in are B from most of you. Amar, Bhupesh, Wasim. Okay. Consider the following statements. AIDS is transmitted by sexual intercourse. Yes, we know this happens. So one is correct. One is already there in all the options. So it doesn't help you. Blood transfusion. Yes. So AIDS or HIV virus can transfer through body fluids and also through blood. Both ways of transmission are possible. So 2 is also there. Then by mosquitoes and other blood-sucking insects. No, absolutely not. And just think about this, how scary it would be. Because you can still have some level of protection. You can test the blood before transfusion. You can have some kind of barrier protection while the sexual intercourse is taking place. But what can you do about the mosquito? So mosquito bites you and you have HIV. So thankfully that is not the case. So this is not possible. Answer is B. The last one is across the placenta. Okay, across the placenta from mother to child, HIV virus can transmit. Again, you have to remember it is not a definite thing. It is not a certainty that if a mother is HIV positive, the child will also be HIV positive. It's not like 100% thing. There is a possibility that the child could be born without the HIV virus also. And a lot of people who have HIV infections, sometimes it's both. There is a very high likelihood that if there is a couple, both of them would have this infection because of the transmission through sexual intercourse, but they might very well have a normal child also without HIV infection. That is a possibility. So this transmission is there, but this is again not a definite thing that it will be there 100%. Right? So 1, 2, and 4 are the answers. Option B is correct. I'm not giving you anything to read here because I think I told you to read both those chapters on how we fall ill and microorganisms. What I can only ask you is revise what we have done in the class, revise what we have done here, all the definitions, and make sure you have no confusions. If you have, you can ask them tomorrow also. We have our next class tomorrow. And we are going to do different systems of the body. And that different functioning of the body is called physiology. Human physiology is what we are supposed to do. So we'll talk about different systems of the body, digestive system, excretory system. Then we'll deal with hormones. Okay. So Girdhar has asked me, so if T cells are not working, why can't B cells do their job? Girdhar, you are definitely pointing out towards the right thing, that B cells are there, they can do the job, they are doing the job, but it is not good enough. There is a reason why T cells are there in the body, and they are not substitutes. B cells and T cells are not substitutes of each other. They are both supposed to work together as a complementary system. It is supposed to work. And if one of those portions is not working properly, then definitely there is going to be some damage at some level and some problem would be there. If any part of the body, it is there for some reason, right? If any cell is there, it is there for some reason. And if it's not functioning, then it is going to live up to in some form. If B cells were also not working, the person would immediately die because no immunity is there in the body, right? Innate immunity is not that strong. So B cells are doing their job, but the deficiency of T cells will definitely be manifested in the form of this disease, which is AIDS. Okay? All right. So thank you, Divyansh and Vikram, and thank you all. Please revise this portion today itself so that you know where you are getting confused or where you have doubts. Okay? Thank you and good night, everyone.